Is the world ready for artificial intelligence in the C-suite? Let's find out with today's amazing special guest, Alan Gold. Welcome to the Artificial Intelligence Podcast, where we make AI simple, practical, and accessible for small business owners and leaders. Forget the complicated tech talk or expensive consultants. This is where you'll learn how to implement AI strategies that are easy to understand and can make a big impact for your business. The Artificial Intelligence Podcast is brought to you by Fraction AIO, the trusted partner for AI digital transformation. At Fraction AIO, we help small and medium-sized businesses boost revenue by eliminating time-wasting, non-revenue generating tasks that frustrate your team. With our custom AI bots, tools, and automations, we make it easy to shift your team's focus to the tasks that matter most, driving growth and results. We guide you through a smooth, seamless transition to AI, ensuring you avoid costly mistakes and invest in the tools that truly deliver value. Don't get left behind. Let Fraction AIO help you stay ahead in today's AI-driven world. Learn more and get started at fractionaio.com. Now, Alan, I'm excited to have you here because you are a fractional CMO and you have a lot of experience in that space. And let's just start with a bang. Like, what's really happening and the shift in the CMO space to fractional CMO space and how AI is changing things and why people should be so excited?
Wow, that's a big question. I think for me as a fractional CMO, if I start to break down all of the activities that are so time consuming for both myself and staff, I think that's really where the problem comes in. I've always followed the edict of Occam's razor: start simple and get things more complex as time goes by. And I suppose that's true for software development as well, right? With agile methodology. But to me, when you think about the tasks that take up the most amount of time, a lot of it is thinking through issues. A lot of it is research. A lot of it is trying to correlate several different ideas together. And often, especially at a staff level, it's difficult to figure out how to pull those things together. Sometimes you need a little bit of a jump start. So for me personally, I tend to use AI as a thought partner, so to speak. If I've got a general sense of what needs to be done from my experience, but I'm really trying to figure out whether or not this is applicable to the market I'm in, I'll risk back and forth with AI, which is a little weird, I have to admit. It sometimes comes back with things that at least lets me play. And from my teams, I see the same thing. Sometimes, especially with content development, it's really tough to be a content developer on a marketing team because you've got generally a narrow range of things you need to talk. Your product, it's your services, it's your industry, but you have to make it fresh once, twice, sometimes 3 times a week in order to support SEO, in order to support the sales teams. So often it's good to work with AI and use that as box starters. Now, there's a lot of argument around whether or not using AI for content development is a bit of a cheat. And I'm an old school English major, and I don't like the idea. I don't like the idea of basically cribbing and let somebody else do the work. But at the same time, if you're looking for a new angle on a topic, and that's no different than looking for new strategy, direction, using AI as a start point is a perfectly reasonable thing to do. It saves time and it lets you think about how to put your touch and your creativity on the topics. So generally, I think it's a really valuable set of tools. And the last point I'll make is it's great for capturing data that would have otherwise taken you forever to find. And one of the things that a lot of people criticize the use of AI for is using it as a real astute of Google. But you know what? If you're looking for stats, if you're looking for research, think about the gigantic volume of information that we have at our fingertips. And it's almost impossible to get through all of that and separate good from bad, nonsense from foolishness, and come up with the real stuff. So I think it's a great starting point as long as you don't take it all literal. So long answer to a fundamental question.
Yeah, I think it leads to something really important, which I wonder about, especially in marketing, which is that whenever there's something new, the first person there gets an advantage, but then eventually everyone's using it and everything starts to sound the same. we sometimes like memories get merged. I was actually watching an article this week. I was on a video and they talk about how Ed McMahon was the Publishers Clearinghouse guy, but he wasn't. He was from a different one. And it's like I was like, oh my gosh, that's how I remember it too. And and it's like, what happens is when things are too similar, we merge them in our heads. And I start to wonder if at first AI is a big advantage in marketing, but it becomes a race to the bottom where everyone starts to sound exactly like each other. Every AI video looks like every other AI video. And if you're following the exact template, you start to get less and less bang for your buck. You start to have less original thought, especially because AI is trained on AI, is trained on AI, is trained on AI. It's almost, if you're all using the exact same data set in the data training, there's not going to be any original ideas. At a certain point, you're starting to see marketing all merge. And we've seen this before. When I was a kid, I think they used to say, oh, if you see a billboard 7 times, you'll remember it. Then it became 13. That like the number keeps going higher and higher. So now it's 1,000 touches and then you'll remember. It's like so many touches. And as we get flooded or overstimulated, you have to find new ways to break through the noise. So what do you envision as the future? What will the shift be when suddenly AI is everywhere?
Another really good question. If I limit it to marketing first, I think that's all separation from competition, separation from everyone else has always been the goal since the invention of marketing. However long ago that was, I guess back in ancient Rome, they found advertisements to take out food. Literally, who knew, right? 2,000 years ago that we were doing that. And I think that's always been a marketing problem. Everyone jumps on whatever concept there is, whatever story there is. I can remember cloud computing, which doesn't seem like it was all that long ago. And suddenly everyone was a cloud computing company. Everyone had cloud in their tab. And there was Agile, and then suddenly everyone is Agile. And so I don't think that it is that different. I think that in some ways underscores the fact that creativity and human thought and when strategy is always going to lead the front, and AI tools are going to be the way that you can spend more time thinking about strategy, thinking about differentiation, rather than putting it into your products, having it in all of your taglines, having it run your website. Those are just tools. An example, I'm old enough to remember when calculators first started showing up in classes. And I can remember the uproar over the fact that this is going to make kids stupid, this is going to take away fundamental skills, blah, 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 blah. And guess what? It didn't, right? There are other things making kids stupid. We'll skip that for the podcast. But it wasn't the calculators. It gave them more time to work out word problems, gave them more time to be creative. And I think that when a tool becomes ubiquitous, you have to apply creativity to find differentiation any way you can. And that's always going to be the case. So I don't think AI takes it away. I think AI challenges, whether it's a CMO or product development person or a founder trying to make a pitch to the next investment, it's going to force them to think more creatively. And rather than a race to the bottom, I think I would argue that it's a race to homogeneity as opposed to purely a race to the bottom. And I think that's going to put pressure on people who have a marginally good idea, either be able to level that idea or leave the space. And that's going to clear the space for people who just have a much more genuine, creative or new idea for the market.
There's been some recent research coming out that like most companies that implement AI aren't seeing an ROI boost or aren't seeing return on investment. And my thoughts on that are that the promise of AI is much bigger than it could possibly be. So push a button and everything happens and it's like magic. And I wish that were true. But there's a huge gap between what they say in the marketing and what you actually experience. And then I think there's an issue with implementation where we're chasing what everyone else is doing. When you go, we have to have AI. Why? Because everyone else has it. And we rush without strategy. And so we grab tools And you say, why'd you pick this tool? And go, it seems really cool. It seems really popular. They offered me a great deal. And what problems are they going to solve? It's like, bought it. Now let's find the problem for it. Or going reverse. And I wonder what are your thoughts? Because that's what I think is causing the low return on investment in the initial phase of AI or the initial phase of these tools. What are you seeing in the world of marketing and kind of in your world?
Sure. I think that's 100% true. In fact, in the shameless plug department, I just written an article for LinkedIn on that very topic. I think that's true. I think that look, Gartner and Forrester all have their versions of hype cycles that talk about everybody rushes to mixed metaphor alert, that side of the boat. So everyone gets all excited about it and they put it in. Why? Because everybody else is doing it. They feel like if they don't, they're going to be left. But I think that's a lot of what we're seeing right now, that people are trying to stuff it in without necessarily understanding the complexities of implementation, how it's going to solve problems. For example, I do a lot of work in the healthcare space. And while there's been a lot of talk pro and con about using AI for diagnostic work, and some things come to mind right away, right? Have an AI take a look at a CT scan or an X-ray and diagnose something that a radiologist might not have seen. But you don't have the expertise or the experience in AI. What you can do is highlight a spot for a radiologist to look at and determine whether that's an artifact or not. But there are other places where AI can be applied really effectively, or places where things bog down in intake, for example. And while this isn't strictly speaking about marketing, it speaks to the issue, I think, pretty well. 2 weeks ago, I had a doctor's appointment, nothing special. And I got an email that said, please click here, fill out your online. You probably have the same experience. You fill the whole thing out, medications, what's ailing you, history, blah, 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 blah. And then you go into the office, I check in, he hands me a clipboard, and I'm filling out exactly the same information. Right? Then I get brought into the exam room, and a medical assistant or a PA or a med tech comes in, and they sit in front of a computer, and they ask me the same questions for the third time. Right? Now, that's staff, that's time, that's effort. So the doctor comes rushing in and starts asking me some other questions because they haven't had time to look at any of this. And I get 5 minutes and they've got to rush off to the medication. Now, this was just a routine thing. But if you think about that and generalize that to any number of things that we do in our day-to-day life, those are legitimate ways in which AI can do intake, it can do summarization, it can pull things together. Think about meeting notes. Think about how AI has helped Zoom meetings, how it's helped Teams meetings, right? Kind of video conferencing, and everyone gets the same set of meetings. So I think that there are applications if you work backwards from the problem. And I think why we have difficulty in seeing an ROI on AI right now is the same for any other new technology that was applied because it was a tool, not because it solved the problem. And I think that will start to, and that's where the trough of disillusionment comes in, if I'm remembering Gartner's hype cycle properly. And that's where people are going to say, we don't need it for all these tools. Let's actually go look for a problem to solve and see how AI can fit in. And when we're a ways away from that yet, because this is still experimental, I still ask multiple AIs the same question and get lots of different answers. And sometimes, because it's weird, I ask AI to critique another AI's results. And sometimes it's interesting to see what comes back, both in terms of style and data.
Yeah, I just want to highlight that's one of the most advanced ways to use AI right now is to get one AI to write a prompt for the other one or to get them to cue each other. So whenever I hear people say that, I always want to take a moment to highlight it because it's such a use case we're missing. Because think about the riddle when like one door always lies and one always tells the truth, where you get one to talk about the other one and then you figure out what would he say. And that's the riddle with AI is that it's not as bad as we worry and it's not as good as we wish it was. It's somewhere in between. And we are caught up in, I need to use it. But there's also, the thing I think about a lot is there's a learning curve with any new tool, with any new software. And I remember all these different phases. Like I remember when in the 90s, when they were like, if you know how to send an email, that's a really cool bonus when you apply for a job. Like they were like, that's a cool bonus. And then it became Microsoft and then it became internet. Now, can you imagine if someone applies for a job? Like, yeah, I don't know how to send an email. It's become like an expectation. So we're in that phase where we're starting to move from AI is like a nice to have to like, they want you to have basic skills or something. And every different platform is different. And there's so many tools coming out constantly. It's how you know you're at a hype cycle because there's new AI software every 5 minutes that it's very easy for people to feel overwhelmed. And it's which tools do I need? What basics do I need? What's the baseline? And I think that's where people get very lost right now because we're not really sure. We haven't decided what the standard is, what the standard level of technical ability is. And when I look at some of the shifts, it's like, what is the most exciting is also the least useful. Like AI video, exciting and useless. Nobody is responding to it. And I know I talk to a lot of clients saying, oh, we want to do AI phone sales. I'm like, a recent study came out that was like, only 78% of people hang up on AI phone calls. So it's, yeah, the other 22 didn't figure it out. But if your opening gambit is deception, right? If like your first step of your marketing plan is deception, like that's a problem. And I worry about that because I think there's going to be that backlash. And I think that we sometimes see these really big market shifts as the add-on effect. Like when music has become a commodity, right? You can have Spotify and you pay a flat fee, you can have every song as opposed to when I was a kid buying vinyl or CDs and it was a really big decision. It was like your budget for the month was one CD. And what happened? Now everyone goes to concerts more and more. Live events have become where it happens. We see a shift. And I wonder if we're going to start to see more of a shift from large scale scaling, selling like via the internet and via this to smaller scale where it's like, we go back to the mall because we want to talk to a person and we want to see a thing and know that it's on AI. Because there's something about being sold to by an AI that doesn't feel right. And maybe we'll eventually shift to that. But that's one of the thoughts that I have. It's a marketing campaign designed by AI is cool unless people find out. It's every once in a while there's a movie that people go, we think AI wrote the script, and you just watch the tickets go down. You're like, it's like the kiss of death. So I wonder about that. It's like it's this double-edged sword, which can be really useful as long as no one knows you're using it, because then they feel, oh, this isn't a real ad. This is like a trick. I think we kind of associate trick with AI. In some cases, it is like a fake phone call. That's a trick.
And that's I think that's a really important thought that you brought forward on this and I think that's, again, in my experience, that's the early adopter phase of every technology that we've dealt. Think about chatbot and websites. Think about when, especially with, let's say, your payments. There's nothing more frustrating, or even for tech support, or even your bank. Everybody has a chatbot, right? An AI chat. And you type in a smart person, somebody who's used to AI will use just enough few words to try to trigger it to give you a response. But if you don't know, if they're just sitting there, I can't get into my account. I have a problem with this. And it comes up with three choices. And those choices, none of which match what your problem is. You get really frustrated and you do the old school equivalent of hanging up. And you try to find an 800 number, and then you get caught in the call tree forever. And I think that it's part of a larger cultural shift. You read a lot about Gen Zers and the things that they like that is so different from millennials and even Gen Xers who created them. That there is, well, on one hand, there's a real gap in human connection, and that's causing great increase in loneliness because they spend so much. But I think at the same time, I think we're human beings with crave interaction at some level. And I think that companies who are using AI as a shortcut for human interaction activities, I think are hopefully going to realize that it doesn't work, that it's a bad use case. And if they don't, I think they're going to be taken out of the food chain because it's going to take a while before anybody wants to have an interaction with an AI that of any kind of consequence. And I think that's going to be one of the challenges that, at least in this transition phase, look, everybody thinks AI is going to be HAL from 2001, or it's going to be iRobot, or not iRobot, I'm sorry. Yes, iRobot from Isaac Asimov. that it's going to be these androids that are going to be walking and talking and serving, and then there's going to be a resolution, and we're going to take over the world. That we're a really long way away from truly independent thinking. This highly complex processing going on. But to put them in situations where you and I would, if we were in a sales situation, we'd be watching body language. We'd be listening to pauses in what people were saying. We'd be hearing euphemisms that would give us either buying or turn down prompts, and then we'd make adjustments. You can't get that with an AI. In its worst case, we all know the one of the AI tools that you went off on, misogynist neo-Nazi tirade. You can push AIs into a rabbit hole, and then they're only as good as all the data that's been poured into them. And so I think that it's, as you point out, a double-edged sword, but I think it's also a double-edged sword for companies who are employing them in situations where at 30,000-foot level, it makes sense to do. 15,000 feet, not so sure. And then when you get down to the ground, to your point, 78% of people know that they're talking to a chatbot, and the other 22% didn't. That's why they didn't hang up. And you get that with people too. I think it's really a matter of market adjustment that needs to take place before anything else. And I think we'll get there. It's going to be painful for people who are trying to use the tool for things that they should.
Yeah. I see this like shift we're going through, which is like more and more comments, like more and more of social media is like bots talking to bots, and like more and more posts about bots. And it's like, I engage less and less with content. Like I engage so little with content. If I turn on the video and it's like AI generated, it's like, I'm not interested. And there's one AI YouTube channel I follow, which breaks down a TV series. It'll take 7 series and they edit it really well. And it's really good script. I'm like, okay, I know it's an AI voice, but it's actually really well done because it's like a show I've never heard of, would never watch. And it's like, understand this whole show in 18 minutes. Man, I listen to that before I go to sleep. It knocks me right out. It's like, it's a little bit interesting, but not interesting enough to keep you awake. But other than, and that's, so there's always that edge use case where someone uses it well, but I see so much desire to use it in the wrong ways. And I do think about like exactly the larger culture shift, which is more and more, we're going to crave authenticity. It's like this idea that we're going to shift to a world where everyone's married to a robot. It's like exciting, but it's also mathematically impossible. There's only so many rare earth minerals in the world. There's literally not enough metal to make that many robots. And people forget that. Like we barely have enough batteries for cars. We don't have enough batteries for everyone to have a robot in their house. Like right out the gate, it's just a pure math issue. Which, and it's also like this idea that you can replace human connection with a pseudo connection, that it doesn't seem to work. Like it doesn't seem to be the same. Like when you have a robot, at least I'm married to a human, married to a human woman.
Yeah.
I never know what she's going to say. Never. She just sent me a message like right before a call, told you, I would have never guessed. If you'd give me 50 guesses, none of them would have been. And there's always stuff like that. And I think that when you have a robot or an AI, it doesn't do that. It will never disagree with you. It will never push that humanness, the surpriseness. And it's like, that's what's really missing. I think maybe that is even when you talk about the homogeneity of advertising or marketing, that's what kind of happens. Is that when every ad looks the same, you have to get a lot more out there. It's like, from looking, if you showed me like a cup with 50 different brands of soda in it, I can't tell. They're all brown from look. And I think they do taste tests and most people can't tell from that either. And that's the issue, is that when it looks the same, it starts to become, you have to find some other way to be noticeable. And we start to see more and more of those things. And I think that my hope is, of course, it leads to more authenticity. We start to do more buying in person, or more wanting to talk to a person, more wanting to make sure it's made a person. Like there's just some desire we have, like whether it's made in America or handmade or like home recipe. Like I see restaurants all the time say like home something. I'm like, you're a restaurant. It's definitely not homemade. Like you're literally the opposite of homemade. It's definitely not that, but they still use that language because it's so powerful and effective. There's some desire we have to support our local community or support local craftspeople or support local businesses. There is that element. And we're in that period now where a lot of companies fake that and create that pseudo element bought by large corporations that don't want anyone to know. And I'm just starting to see that there's this shift where we now have the ability to research and find out things very quickly, which didn't used to exist. Now, first it was Google, now it's AI, now it's voice AI. You can find out, like I went and looked at a car one time. I can't remember what brand it was. And the guy said this won the JD Power Associates Award this year. This is early 2000. I went home and looked online and it was like, worst car of the year. Like that was the award. It was like unbelievable. I was like, he didn't think I was going to look. Now you would not even try that because you're going to get caught right out the gate.
Yeah.
So I think that it almost forces us on authenticity. And that's what I hope. I don't know if I'm right, but we always see these market shifts. And that's the thing. Every time there's a new technology, whether it's calculators or whether it's graphing calculators or whether it's GPS, and then all these technologies, like we think it's going to dramatically change the world. Not really. The world before GPS and the world after GPS, not that different. People still get lost. People still get there. People still read math. Like it's not that different. So I hope that we can see that we're in an exciting time, but it's not that different. Now, this has been amazing, Alan. I really appreciate your time. For people who are interested in you, I know you do some amazing fractional stuff. Where can they find you online? Where can they see some of these articles that you've been writing?
Oh, sure. You can find me on LinkedIn, and it's www.linkedin.com/Alan E. Gold. And you can find me as well at alan.gold@pepcxo.com. Always happy to talk with people about AI and the right way to use it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for wasting your time. I'll put all of your connection information in the show notes and below the video if you're watching the video right now. Thank you so much for being here for an amazing episode of the Artificial Intelligence Podcast. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Artificial Intelligence Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss another episode. We'll be back next Monday with more tips and strategies on how to leverage AI to grow your business and achieve better results. In the meantime, if you're curious about how AI can boost your business's revenue, head over to artificialintelligencepod.com/calculator. Use our AI revenue calculator to discover the potential impact AI can have on your bottom line. It's quick, easy, and might just change the way you think about your business. While you're there, catch up on past episodes, leave a review, and check out our socials. If you enjoyed this episode, I've got 2 more that I think you're going to love. Click one of these videos to dive into more awesome content, and don't forget to subscribe for even more insights on using AI to grow your business. And I'll see you in the next one.